Hi BookTube, it's Gina and I'm here today to do my May wrap-up. I want to talk about some books that I've read in May, and I want to talk about a couple of TV shows that I've been really enjoying, and maybe a couple magazines. I'm not sure yet if I want to talk about the magazines because I didn't enjoy them, but I'll save them for the end. Because I do like to keep my channel positive, and for the most part, I just don't like to be negative. So let's talk about the TV shows first. So I've been watching Star Trek Voyager, and for those of you who have been watching my channel at all, you know that I've been rewatching all of the Star Trek series in order. And this, to me, is the blessing and the joy of the streaming channels, Netflix's, Hulu's, because I've seen a lot of these shows in bits and pieces, but to watch them from start to finish has just been such a treat. So I'm on Voyager now, and I'm really enjoying it. This is actually one series that I have never seen a single episode of. So I really didn't know anything about it. I didn't know what to expect. And it's been a lot of fun to watch. I've really been enjoying the coming together of the Maquis and the Federation groups who are stranded due to a series of circumstances in the Delta Quadrant, and they have to figure out how to work together. And it's a little touchy-feely sometimes, but I love the endings where the teams manage to come together and work together, and I've just really been enjoying it so far. I'm still on the first season of it, so I've got a long way to go. And then the second TV show that I watched that I love so much is season 3 of the Kominsky Method. And if you have not seen this show, it's fantastic. This is the last season. It's just the 3 seasons, and it stars Michael Douglas and Ellen Arkin as an actor and an aging agent in Hollywood. Michael Douglas is Sandy Kominsky. He's got an acting studio. And it is just such a fun show. And season 3 I love so much because there's been a guest appearance by Morgan Freeman, which is one of the funniest things I have ever seen. I'm not gonna spoil it, but he's got the funniest scene that I've seen in a long time. It just pokes some good-hearted fun at some of our contemporary culture, which I just think is really funny. And I hope that doesn't offend anybody who's seen it and was maybe not as, didn't think it was as funny. On to the books. I have read 5 books. I read 2 for the 1900 to 1950 readathon. I didn't read as many for that as I was sort of planning to. And then I read some kids books this month. So the first book I finished was A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, which was published in 1943 and was written by Betty Smith. And this is an old hardback copy that I have. It's a little plain on the front, but it's got a nice spine. I read some of this, but I also reserved this at the library from on my Kindle. So I read a lot of that on my Kindle, which is just such a nice reading experience. Really, really enjoyed this book. I would say it is a slice of life from the 40s about a family, primarily a girl growing up in Brooklyn. And it's got some sadness. They are a poor family struggling to get by in many instances, and really just goes through and details their challenges, but also the joys that they find and the wonderful characters. So I really enjoyed this book. And then I also read Mary Poppins, which is, of course, a middle grade book written by P.L. Travers. And this book was really odd to me. Not at all what I was expecting. This was written in 1934 and is absolutely nothing like the movie, other than the fact that it's got Mary Poppins in it. This is really a snippet of different Mary Poppins scenes. Mary Poppins is not a very nice person. She's a little bit more curmudgeonly in this than she is in the movie. So I enjoyed this, but I didn't love it. It just wasn't what I was expecting. The third book that I read was Smouldering Fire by D.E. Stevenson. And I love D.E. Stevenson. This book I actually read, I bought it on my Kindle, so I read that on my Kindle. I do have a couple D.E. Stevensons. Oh, here's some of the reprints that they're doing of some of her books. I didn't read this one. I've read before, but I do like these new copies, but I'm really trying to find some of her older like original copies, because I think they're going to be really nice, but haven't found any of those yet. So I read Smouldering Fire on my Kindle, and that is a wonderful story about a wealthy landowner. Are they the laird in Scotland? Basically owns the town, owns the mansion, but he's landed on some hard times just managing the estate and paying for everything. So he decides to rent out his manor for the summer shooting season. He rents it out to some rather brash social climbing people who are trying to increase their social circle by inviting some wealthy and more, what's the word for it? Well-established people, and they want to be part of that circle. So they rent the house for the shooting season. The laird, rather than leaving, which normally they do in these situations apparently, is he decides to stay in a little cottage on the property, and of course, romance and some chaos ensue. It was a pretty straightforward romance for the beginning of the book, and then it took a little bit of an unexpected turn midway through, so it was not quite what I was expecting, but I always love everything by D.E. Stevenson, so I really enjoyed that. And then lastly, I read a book called, not lastly, I have two more, The Anybody's by N.E. Buddy, a pen name, which is, I think, quite clever. This is a middle grade book that was, I think, written back in the 80s. I heard about this on Cozy Rosie Reads, and of course it sounded right up my alley. So this is another book that I really enjoyed. It is about a group of people who can become anybody. They can sort of alter their appearance, and it's, I guess what I would say is a little bit of a fantasy, because of course they can do things that most people cannot do. But it's got a lot of depth to it, a lot more depth than I was expecting. Really explores issues about family and the meaning of family, and about when you can be anybody. How do you be yourself, and what does that mean? And it was just a really wonderful middle grade book. I would definitely recommend that one as well. And then lastly, I read The Year of Miss Agnes by Kirkpatrick Hill. This is a children's book. I would say it's an early reader, like a first chapter book. It was not a middle grade book. But it was about a teacher in Alaska in, 1900s, who went to Alaska to teach the students in a fairly rural and difficult area to live in. And it was just a wonderful reading experience. The teacher was very, very sweet, and also, made sure that the students learned, explored some of the Alaska Native heritage, and I thought it was a really interesting and fun read. I did hear about this on someone's channel here. It may have been the Personal Cozy Project. I can't remember, so I apologize for not shouting out who recommended that book, but I will link Personal Cozy Project below, because I think that it was on their channel. And then lastly, the magazines that I read. So I had bought some magazines, My French Country Home and Cottage Style, and I loved the pictures in these magazines. It was really fun to just flip through the pictures. I did that during my Memorial Day weekend staycation. But you guys, these magazines now, I don't know if I'm just out of the loop, but they are the biggest, most pretentious pieces of poo I have ever seen. The pictures are lovely, but the text is all, you know, people can't bear to live in these smaller homes. They've got to buy and renovate a farmhouse and build a pool and have 6 bedrooms. And it just does not speak to me. So I'm going to tear some of the pictures out and keep some of the pretty pictures. But I think that that's a pretty good indication that magazines are not for me anymore. And lastly, I want, you know, one thing I've been thinking about recently is how new booktubers can sort of advertise their channels. Now, this is sort of off topic, but where I'm going with this is I want to say, if you have a channel, a new channel, an old channel, if you've been around for a while, shout yourself out in the comments. You know, I've been finding it hard because sometimes I know there's an etiquette rule that you're not supposed to say like, I have a channel, come check me out when you're commenting. And I agree with that, right? You don't want to, as a new booktuber, you don't want to necessarily, or as a new YouTuber, I think it's a little bit different on BookTube, but people can find it a little bit unappealing if people are commenting and saying, check out my channel, which I totally understand. But I think in BookTube, maybe it's a little bit different because we're a smaller community. So I want to ask everybody who's got a channel to just shout yourself out below. Tell me what you talk about. I will check you out. You can maybe just let us know what you like to talk about, and that will let us know if you have a channel. If you don't have a channel, of course, I encourage everyone to start a channel because it's a lot of fun, and I'm going to talk about that more in the future, but definitely comment below if you've got a channel, and I look forward to talking to you in the comments. Bye.